When we talk about the coexistence of the living and the dead, our imagination often runs to zombie movie scenarios or recent horror TV series like Van Helsing. However, this isn't the only scenario one might encounter when stumbling upon the so-called City of the Dead. In fact, in Egypt, this aforementioned coexistence doesn't have its origins in narratives or Dawn of the Dead, but rather simply finds its raison d'être in the need to find shelter, a roof, for the living who required housing. In Egypt, there exists a cemetery inhabited by the living, citizens among the deceased. And even though some or more tombs lack electricity, the small town is equipped with streets featuring bars and venues where tourists can also stop. Perhaps one of the most evocative yet unsettling places in Cairo. The origins of Cairo's necropolis. The beginnings of Cairo's necropolis date back to the foundation and expansion of the city of Fustat, established in 642 AD by Amr ibn al-As, the Muslim Arab commander who led the conquest of Egypt. The use was the classic one of tombs, and the first Muslim city was divided into several kitatat or plots of land assigned to different tribes. Each tribe built its own cemetery and funeral district, often including a mosque, in the desert area east of the city. However, it was during the Fatimid period, between 969 and 1171 AD, that the popular tradition of visiting the tombs of family members and ancestors for holidays emerged, or was reborn. It was at this time that people began to live in the cemeteries, as the new buildings within the Qara, the City of the Dead, whose name derives from a Yemeni clan that owned a plot of land required too many workers, and moreover, the new religious foundations attracted scholars and Sufis. The attempt to expropriate the area occurred in the 15th century, with the authorities officially prohibiting citizens from living in the Qara. In this way, many structures were left unguarded and were looted. At the beginning of the 16th century, Leo Africanus described the ancient Qara, the southern cemetery, as inhabited by about 2,000 families. Napoleon Bonaparte and the City of the Dead. When Ottoman rule ended due to Napoleon Bonaparte's invasion in 1798, the French cited hygienic reasons as the motive for prohibiting burials within the city. Cemeteries inside the walls were destroyed and the belongings of their occupants moved, leaving only the Qara, which was outside the city walls, as the main burial place in Cairo. Population growth once again led people to use these structures. At the end of the 1800s, Cairo's housing problems encouraged relocations. Many old buildings in the city's historic districts were demolished to make way for more modern structures, and much of the poor and working class moved towards the outskirts of the city. This was combined with rural migration to the cities, which increased throughout the 20th century. In 1897, the census estimated the population of the districts that included the cemeteries at 30,969 inhabitants. The tomb dwellers, the living inhabitants of the tombs. After 1950, rapid urbanization and modernization encouraged migration, as Cairo was unable to manage the population growth. When the government excluded the poorest classes from welfare initiatives, the effect was an urgent need for improvised housing. People began to build unofficial dwellings without government approval in areas where they could find space to build or where they could demolish or incorporate older structures. It was the Cairo earthquake of 1992 that sanctioned the growth of the City of the Dead. Many people moved into family tombs, fueling the phenomenon of tomb dwellers, with people squatting in tombs due to displacement or lack of housing in the city. In the 1980s, the estimate was 6,000 residents in Qara, but the total population living in cemetery areas was 180,000 units. Rent was non-existent, and services, such as sanitation or electricity, were in the development phase. From employees to merchants, here's who the inhabitants of the City of the Dead are. The old part of Cairo continues to tell evocative stories, but also of poverty. Urbanization and industrialization have attracted many people to the city who have moved from surrounding areas to Cairo's necropolis, which rises beyond the old city. A phenomenon born from the shortage of housing, apparently solved without having to pay rent. It started as a process of occupying what were and remain family tombs, or abandoned ones, where employees and workers from the commercial and merchandise sectors also live.